Hello everyone. This is a video demonstration, actually an explanation of the security best practices in AWS, which is Amazon Web Services. Everything is connected to Amazon Web Services via internet. There can be VPN connections, but most of the time we deal with public internet in order to make use of Amazon Web Services and its applications. Let's move into the content. This contains discussion of the checklist as well as a quick go through of the related topics in AWS console. First of all, we have to have a thorough understanding about shared response model. So let's begin with shared response model, the things that we responsible and the things AWS responsible as is provided. So it's first one, as you can see, preventing or detecting when an AWS account has been compromised. So as customer, we are responsible of preventing or detecting an AWS account has been compromised. The second one, preventing or detecting privileged or regular AWS user behaving in an insecure manner. So that is also responsible by customer. Preventing sensitive data from being uploaded or shared from application in an inappropriate manner. There are things that we store and retrieve from AWS. There can be sensitive information and sensitive data. So the responsibility of those data or information is on customer. And the fourth one, configuring AWS services except AWS managed services in a secure manner, so which is also a responsibility of customer. So AWS services, there are some services which is fully managed by AWS and we can use those services as a user. When it comes to configuration of the AWS services, so it is again responsibility of customer. So the fifth one, restricting access to AWS services or custom application to only those users who require it. So assume that you have application in AWS or application hosted on top of AWS managed service. To have the access to those application is managed by you as a customer. That is again a responsibility of the customer. So restricting access to that application or allowing some traffic into that application is a responsibility of customer. And the sixth one, updating guest operating systems and applying security patches. There are services that we can use as compute and storage and databases where we can configure our own database. Likewise, when it comes to the operating system of that service or the processing unit, there are some manual things or automated things that we can do on that operating systems and the services. So updating or maintaining or applying security patches are also a responsibility of customer. This is actually not the part of AWS managed service. I'm talking about, as an example, compute instances where we can manage by ourselves. And the seventh one, ensuring AWS and customer applications are being used in a manner compliant with internal and external policies. So there are some policies, regulations when it comes to application level where we have developed and implement a solution for a user case. So ensuring that the compliance of internal or external policies is a responsibility of customer plus AWS, because there are some underlying infrastructure resources where AWS managed. In case there is a bond between AWS and customer with respect to responsibilities. And the eighth one, ensuring network security, DDoS, man-in-middle, port scanning. That is again a bonded responsibility with AWS and customer. There are some tools inbuilt in AWS services where we can see such incidents. It's our responsibility to enable those services as a customer, as well as AWS responsibility to take care of the things from their end in such situations. And the ninth one, configuring AWS managed services in a secure manner. AWS managed services are solved based on AWS internal infrastructure and their architectures of the implementations. So in case their AWS is fully responsible for their managed services. So we are, as a users, we are just using these services. So nothing to configure there, nothing to touch or nothing to worry about the underlying infrastructures. So in case AWS is responsible for those managed services resources. And the 10th one, providing physical access control to hardware, software. So since AWS is a cloud service provider, so we don't have any physical access or any inside access to those resources. Only AWS has. Therefore, the AWS is responsible for this kind of access or software maintenance, whatever the things that they manage inside AWS data centers. The 11th point, providing environmental security assurance against things like mass power outages, earthquakes, floods, and other natural disasters. AWS, in a top level cloud service provider, they maintain different availability zones, different regions to host their physical servers, which is data centers. So providing environmental security assurance is a responsibility of AWS. Assume that there is an incident of flood in that particular AWS region or availability zone. So AWS is responsible for their the data which stores inside that data center. They have to have a mechanism to protect those data. And the 12th one, database patching. So there are some database services which is fully managed by AWS. In case of that, the patching of the underlying operating system of that database is fully responsible for AWS. 13th one, protecting against AWS zero-day exploit and other vulnerabilities. When it comes to protecting AWS resources from their end, it is again a responsibility of AWS. And the 14th one, business continuity management. So availability, incident response. So they have guaranteed that they provide the high availability and the durability and the scalability. So such kind of features that they provide. So then they are the responsibility, these features. I hope you all get an idea what are the things that you as a customer should follow or have a concern, and the things that AWS responsible for their infrastructure and internal resources and physical data center security, like sort of things. Moving forward, so this is kind of a high level breakdown, the things that we should concern when it comes to security best practices in AWS as a customer. As you can see, there are 5 major topics which comes under high level breakdown. So first one is identity and access management, second one is detection, third one infrastructure protection, data protection, and incident response. Identity and access management, which is kind of a major segment in AWS which controls everything going in and out of access level. So as a user or as a AWS account holder can have access to AWS. So in case, identity and access management should be properly implemented to have that access in a secure manner. So first one is secure your AWS account. Securing your AWS account in sense, you can have multiple users access to AWS, this account. Since the responsibility is of that account is yours, we have to have that secure way of accessing then to our AWS account. Rely on centralized identity provider. So it's also a highlighting point where we can implement a single sign-on or any centralized identity providing mechanism. Identity and access management provide that as well. Use multiple AWS accounts to separate workloads and workload stage such as production and non-production. We can have multiple AWS accounts as one organization where we separate those environments into separate accounts. Assume that you have production environment and testing environment and kind of a user acceptance testing environment. So those environments should be implemented in a different AWS account based on one organization. So that is again identity access management. So you can give access to the people who need access to development environment. So nothing to other environments. So in case you can have that access to the particular AWS account which requires one of users or developers access to that account. And the fourth one, store and use secrets securely. The security credentials in the sense password, secret access keys, like the things that we should have in order to access to AWS accounts should be securely, safely maintained under users. And the second one is detection. Detection enables foundational services, AWS CloudTrail, Amazon GuardDuty, and AWS Security Hub, which are kind of accounting services. We have AAA concept: authentication, authorization, accounting. So in the accounting section, we can have detection using AWS CloudTrail, Amazon GuardDuty kind of services which provide by AWS. So it's our responsibility to enable those services and keep track of things that users are doing under the AWS accounts. The second one, configure service and application level logging. So there are features that those services has inbuilt, so we can enable loggings of the application or the services. Assume that we can have application load balance access logs. So the request that comes through that load balancer, so we can have a log of those requests in a separate place where we can retrieve and see the flow of the logs. And the third one, configuring monitoring and alerts and investigating events. So configuring monitoring is very important, so we can continuously monitor and detect abnormalities, very unusual behaviors. So likewise, we can configure an event to get an alert. So without looking at the monitoring dashboards all the time, so we can configure alerts to have an event trigger. So we can then go or log into that account and check what are the things that is being compromised, or what are the things that we have in unusual behaviors, unusual patterns, and take necessary actions to that incident. And the third one is infrastructure protection. Infrastructure protection means the infrastructure that we use to have that application, the things that we manage by customers. So in that case, Azure operating system, application, and code. So we have to have a mechanism or a regular base patching mechanism to our applications, or a code base or operating systems. So that is again a responsibility of customer, and we should have a regular base, or like quarterly or monthly or weekly, whatever the preferred or determined time period, we should have a patching mechanism to patch the regular security patches or updates or anything related to security concerns. And the second one is implement distributed denial of service protection for your internal facing resources. So the things that we use as internet facing resources, like AWS load balancers, or else direct traffic comes to AWS compute instances, or else the databases, if we want to have that in public, which is not good, but if the user case is required to have a public database connection, then we have to have that connection exposed to public. But we have to make sure that is not being attacked by the denial of service attacks. So we have to have a protection mechanism to things that internet facing as resources. And the third one, control access using VPC, security groups, and subnet layers. So I hope you have a basic understanding of what is VPC and the security groups and subnet layers of the AWS services. So we have to have a controlling mechanism to restrict the things that we don't want someone else from the outside have access to those. So we have to have a security group rules and subnet layer, like network access rules kind of things. And the fourth one is data protection. So data protection in the sense, we have multiple resources, multiple services, multiple applications which we use in AWS. There we store data and transfer data in between public network, or store somewhere else resource, and we control those data in somewhere else place. So we have to make sure that the data is protected or is securely stored. So protect data at rest is kind of a thing that we can enable from AWS service itself to have, we can enable AES 256, which is encryption mechanism. So we can enable AES 256 there to store the data encrypted at rest. And also we can use encrypt data in the transist of the data between AWS data center and the customer or our users public internet. So we can encrypt those data in Transist as well. So use mechanisms to keep people away from data. So from the AWS account or AWS API or AWS SDK, we can have access to those data. So we should have understanding of the things that we manage under data. So we should have understanding of the things what we manage in AWS services and the data. So you should have understanding of the things that stores in the AWS resources and who can have access to those data likewise. And the last one is incident response. Ensure you have an incident response plan. So it's a best practice where we have to have good secured environment. If we have a plan, if any incident happens, so we have a response plan, so we can immediately take necessary actions to mitigate or recover things which is not accepted happen. So make sure that someone is notified to take action on critical findings. So if there are some critical findings, someone should be notified and should take action, mitigate those critical findings to have or else just have a concern or just attend to it and do the necessary things for the findings. Or maybe you can escalate to a senior or any technical person or else any consultant. You can get an idea from him. So what are the things that we should do if this happens? So the things that already happened and explain to him and take an idea. And the third one is practice responding to events. So in this point, it explains like we don't have to panic and do multiple things if something happens. So we have to practice how to attend the things like if any critical incident happens. So we have to have good practice to respond in such a situation. I explained everything should be there in high level breakdown. So let's move into next part. What are the things that we should have to have a best approach, or the things we should follow in AWS resources to have the best secured environment. So first one is billing and account governance. So this is kind of questions you should ask from yourself. So whether you have this, or we should implement this, or I should ask from someone else. So the things that you should think by yourself or ask from yourself in order to have this approach. It's the best approach. So billing and account governance. Has your organization developed an approach for the billing and account management? Have you determined whether or not multiple accounts will be used? Who will be responsible for creating AWS accounts and how billing will be handled? So these are the things that you should consider when it comes to billing and account governance. So you should have a proper mechanism who has the access to handle billing and sort of things likewise. And the second one is security and access management. So this is again access management. Has your organization developed a strategy for managing AWS API, console, operating system, network, and data access? So think about it. Has your organization developed a strategy for managing AWS API, console, operating system, and network and data access? So ask from yourself whether this has been implemented, or if not, then how we should implement those strategies, or if you can have someone as a consultant and take advice from him and do the necessary things. So the third one is access management. Does your organization have a strategy for identifying and tracking AWS provision resources? Again, it's a accounting thing that it can track the things provisioned in under AWS resources. The fourth one is application high availability and resilience. Does the implemented AWS solution meet or exceed the application high availability and resilience requirements? So when it comes to high availability, so you should have a approach where it has high availability enabled in your application. There are multiple things that you can do when it comes to high availability. So AWS itself has features to enable high availability with some multi-availability zone deployments, auto scaling mechanisms, and some failover mechanisms. So you should be aware of whether these things are enabled or not. If not, you have to attend those and implement in a proper way. And the fifth one, application disaster recovery and backup. Does the implemented AWS solution meet or exceed the application's disaster recovery and backup requirements? There are some disaster recovery approaches and backup plans, backup mechanisms inbuilt in AWS services. So make sure those features are enabled. And the sixth one, monitoring and incident management. Has your organization instrumented appropriate monitoring tools and integrated your AWS resources into its incident management process? So it's again a question that you should ask from yourself, from your management or your technical team, that there are appropriate monitoring tools and integrated your AWS resources in incident management process. So moving forward, configuration and change management. Does your organization have a configuration and change management strategy for its AWS resources? Configuration and change management. So it's a highlighting point that we should consider, because configuring and change management. Assume that you have done something as well as someone else also done something at the same time. So how you know that someone else also have done something? Someone else changes should be tracked. So there should be a process where if someone want to take or made any changes to that application or any configuration, so there should be a way that take approvals and keep records the things that do in that configurations likewise. So there should be a strategy for AWS resources to track or configuration and change management as well. The last one of this question segment, release and deployment management. Has your organization determined how it will integrate application release and deployment with its configuration and change management strategy? So it's again a continuous deployment or continuous integration process where you have a release and deployment management process. So whether you have a keep track of version controlling or any peer reviewing process, how the things should be released in a proper way, or how the things that if want to revert back, how the things are tested likewise. So let's move into the things next, best practices and security checklist that I created for AWS. There are some main points which explains to keep our AWS resources, or to keep our AWS account, or to keep our AWS applications in a secure way by following these checklist and following these best practices. So first one, enable CloudTrail logging across all AWS. CloudTrail is a service that it keeps track of every event or action or any incident when it comes to resources happen or done by any particular user or a application. It tracked or keep a log of every event where we can see what happened or what has done by someone in the AWS account itself. The second one, turn on CloudTrail logs file validation. So it's again a feature of it. So make sure to enable it to have file validations. Enable CloudTrail multi-region logging. So it is again another feature which has in CloudTrail service in order to track multi-region loggings. The fourth one, integrate CloudTrails with CloudWatch. CloudWatch is a monitoring service in AWS where we can have logs of CloudTrails event in a CloudWatch. So we can have a look from CloudWatch dashboards or logs, log groups likewise. And the fifth one, enable access logging for CloudTrail S3 buckets. So S3 bucket is a storage service, so where we can access from anywhere in the world. So in order to have access logging for S3, we can enable CloudTrail as well. Enable access logging for Elastic Load Balancers. Elastic Load Balancer is a service which provide load balancing for your application or any traffic comes through to any AWS resources. So we can enable access logging for that service as well. So that is a best practice we can have in AWS. Enable Redshift audit logging. So Redshift is a service which provide data warehousing feature. So enable Redshift logging is also a best practice to have audit loggings in AWS Redshift service. Enable virtual private cloud VPC flow logs. It's again keep a track of every networking, every underlying resource communication traffic in a separate place. If you want, we can go through those flow logs, VPC flow logs, and determine any incidents if we want. So enable that feature is also a security best practice in AWS. Required multi-factor authentication to delete CrowdTrail buckets. So there are buckets which contains CrowdTrail loggings, as I explained earlier, of any event that happened in AWS account. So there's a track. So when someone wants to delete that bucket, the multi-factor authentication should be implemented. So that is again a security best practice which can implement in AWS. Turn on multi-factor authentication for the root account. So root account is the main user account, which is the owner of the account. Turning on that multi-factor authentication feature is best practice. So it should be enabled. Also turn on multi-factor authentication for IAM users. IAM user is nothing but a separate user apart from root account who can access AWS resources as a separate user. So we have to make sure that those users also has multi-factor enabled. And the 12th one, enable IAM users for multi-mode access. Multi-mode instance, we have different access methods. We can have console access, we can have API access, software development kit application access. So we have to make sure those multi-modes also enable, because if something happens in any preferred way, so we can have that another way of accessing those resources. Attach IAM policies to group or roles. IAM policies is nothing but a level of access policy that it belongs to some service. So if user has that policy in its IAM user, then that user can have that access in that service. So it's best practice to group those policies or roles and provide access via those groups. Then we don't have to attach every user at every time to have multiple access. So it's again a best practice to keep groups or roles for the policies in IAM users. Rotate IAM access keys regularly and standardize on the selected number of days. So IAM access keys are required to have CLI access to any AWS resources. So which is nothing but a kind of accessing way that we use AWS console to GUI access, as well as we use Amazon access keys to connect via CLI or any API access to AWS. So make sure to standardize and regularly rotate those keys. So it's again a best practice to keep regular basis key rotation implemented. And we can select number of days to expire. So let's assume we have a 90 days rotation period. So we can rotate those keys and update the keys where we have used. And the 15th one, set up strict password policy. So strict password policy is a way we can implement security password hardening. So whenever user wants to create a new password or the first password, so we should have a password policy to have, as an example, minimum characters is we can define minimum characters to 8 or maybe 16. We can have uppercase, lowercase, and any symbolic characters should include in our password. So we can define a password policy to user to strict password policy segment. So which is another best practice in AWS we should follow. The 16th one, set the password expiration period to 19 days and prevent reuse customer Visual Force pages with standard headers. So it's again password rotation. So it's always a best practice to keep the password expiration and prevent reuse same password as again. And don't use expired SSL TLS certificates. So TLS SSL is a certification mechanism which we use to encrypt connections, keep a track of the expiration of the TLS certificates. If you use AWS Certificate Manager, then it automatically updates the certificates yearly, so nothing to worry. But if you use in third-party certificates, then you should have implemented certificate rotation, so to make sure you don't use expired certificates. And the 18th one, moving forward, use HTTP for CloudFront distributions. CloudFront is a content delivery network which provides as a service in AWS. So make sure you use HTTPS. So that is again used by Amazon Certificate Manager to have HTTPS, or else you can import certificates to that service and use your own certificates as well. So moving forward, restrict access to CloudTrail bucket. So you don't have to have everyone access to CloudTrail buckets, but it's a best practice to implement it there. Encrypt CloudTrail logs files at rest. That is also a good practice. 21st one, encrypt Elastic Block Store's database. Encrypt Elastic Block Store. EBS is nothing but a hard disk of your virtual machine. So we can have encryption enabled in order to keep the data encrypt at rest. Provision access to resource using IAM roles. That is again IAM dependency. Ensure EC2 security group don't have large range of port open. So security group is a firewall which stand in front of your server. So make sure you granted access to required ports, required users, or any source which should be intentionally applied. Reduce number of IAM groups. So by reducing number of IAM groups, you can define access levels for particular user group. So that is again a best practice to keep track of the users, and you can easily manage users so without having multiple large number of IAM groups. And 36, terminate unused access keys. Every user can have IAM access keys. So if you don't want them, or if you no longer using it, so you can simply deactivate that access key or completely remove that access key. Disable access for inactive or unused IAM users. So if you are aware that one of user is not being access to resources using that one of IAM user, so you better disable that user and remove unused IAM access keys. So again, it's again delete unused SSH public keys. So if you don't use any public keys for any connectivity, so you better remove those public keys from the AWS resources. Restrict access to Amazon machine images. So Amazon machine image is nothing but a copy of your AWS EC2 instance, which is kind of a backup of your AWS EC2 server. So restrict access to IAM AMIs. Amazon machine image is also best practice because you can share those Amazon machine images between accounts if you have access to those AMIs from one account. It's also a best practice to keep Amazon machine images secure. And also restrict access to EC2 security groups, restrict access to RDS instances, restrict access to Redshift clusters, disallow unrestricted ingress access on uncommon ports. So it's again a thing that we should follow when it comes to ingress access, so inbound access. And 46, moving forward, restrict access to well-known ports such as SIFS, FTP, ICMP, SMTP, SSH, remote desktop. So if you want to have that ports open, so you can specify any known resource or known IP address. So instead of open to world, so you can have that rule in security groups. 47. Inventory and categorize all existing custom applications by the type of data stored, compliance requirement, and possible threats they face. So it is again a good point. All existing custom application by types. So you can categorize things that it should have some consideration in compliance requirements. So if there's any possible threats, then you should have a concern on that particular specified data stored data types. And 48, involve IT security throughout the development process. So while you are developing any application or any solution for a client or maybe for yourself, so make sure you involve IT security throughout the development process. So it may very useful, or it may be very security concerns easy when it comes to testing and the final stage of your development process. Grant the fewest privilege as possible for application users. So it is also a best practice. You can minimize the people who has access to your application. So it is also a best practice to have. enforce a single set of data loss prevention policies across custom application and all other cloud services. As it explains, it's again a best practice to enforce a single set of data loss prevention policies. For custom applications and all other cloud services is also mean by best practices of the cloud maintenance. And 51, encrypt highly sensitive data such as protected health information or personal identifiable information. So if your application or any you are storing resources use those sensitive or any personal information, so you better encrypt those. So even at data transit, so it's better to encrypt highly sensitive data. Put your strategy first and determine if it supports various tools and controls. Without directly implement your solution, you may better like find and conclude things that it support or whether it is not supporting to with this service, or whether it is not compatible with your service. So first as a first step, so it's better to find things that it can worse in your later steps, later stages. So enforce clear, consist cloud security controls and procedures. So enforcing for your customers or maybe your technical teams or maybe your developers, management guys. So it is also best practice to enforce those controls and procedures for them as well. Apply security to all layers. There are some layers, application layers, or you maybe call it tiers, different tiers of your application. So apply as much as possible to your every layers of your application, every layers of your solution. So leverage native cloud security resources. So moving forward, develop a security culture. So in your working environment or maybe your awareness, so it is best practice to develop a security culture. So everyone should be aware what is going on, what are the things that can be happen if I do these things. So it is better to have a security culture, so keep everyone safe and the environment and the application also safe. Monitor users access for your database. So monitoring your database access is also best practice, because databases are more critical when it comes to personal or privacy data or any transactional data. So it is best practice to keep track of the user access to database when it comes to auditing and security purpose. Configure a password policy for the database as well. So as a regular basis, it's better to rotate the database password as well. Use password generator tools to create complex secure passwords. So instead of using your own thoughts and your own regular passwords, it is a best practice to generate some password using some customizable password generator tools. So encrypt sensitive information. It is again same thing like I explained earlier. Don't use expired certificates for the data in transit or any data connectivity. 62, backup your data regularly. That is a highlighting point. So make sure you keep regular database or any data backups as much as possible, because if any data loss or any attack happens, so you can revert back or restore any data from any backup point, so where you can minimize your damage, you can minimize your data loss. It is safe to encrypt those EBS volumes. Lock down your root account credentials. So make sure keep your root account credentials in a safe place. Keep your AWS policies and practices up to date, and use vulnerability reporting. So vulnerability reporting is also a best practice. You can use AWS Inspector service and Guard Duty service or any other third-party security scanning tool for vulnerability reporting, and you can attend to those reports and do the necessary mitigation steps in order to have clean reports. So ensure all of your servers are patched. So which means like by going through those vulnerability reports, so you can have a patch update mechanism, so you can have an idea by going through report and then apply those patches accordingly. Use key policies to control access to DMKs. Implement strong network security protocols and policies. So it is again a general term thing that we should follow in each and every network security concerns. choose regions to manage network latency and regulatory compliance. So it's also best practice to choose your resources, choose your regions. So it is a best practice to have the nearest or the low latency, so which may reduce your network latency as well. 71, monitor user access for AWS Management Console. So it's again a CloudTrail feature that we can use AWS Management Console access for users. So keep track of the things. So use AMIs for platform components. That is again a Amazon Machines platform component. These are some major points that I wanted to discuss here. So I used following references in order to create those checklists. So you also can view them and go through by yourself. Let's move into the AWS demo. Let's begin with the IAM service, which is Identity Access Management Service in AWS, where we control user access as we discussed in checklist. So we have policies, roles, and users, identity providers as access management and access reportings. We have access analyzer, archive rules, analyze settings, and all. So if I switch into policies, we have different kind of predefined AWS policies. So even we can create our own policy in users. We can add users. So there we have programmatic access and AWS console access. So let's move into EC2 service. It's Elastic Compute Service, where we can have servers, virtual servers. So we are in this context, our intention is to security. So let's check some security features in EC2 service. So as I explained in the discussion, so we have AMIs, Amazon Machine Images. So we can create our own image using one of our server, as well as we can check public and private images as well. Network and security section, we have security group, where we have default security group as predefined one. So there we have inbound rules and outbound rules. Even we can create our own security group and specify some rules, so where we allow access and deny access likewise. And also we have load balancers in the EC2 service itself, so where we can create our own load balancer as a managed service by AWS, and then we can enable S3 logins there as well. Let's move into database service. RDS is AWS Managed Database Service. There we can create AWS database, which is managed by AWS, but we can have access to that database instance. When we create a database, then we can specify security group and define allowing and denying roles. So let's check on VPC service. There we have all the virtual private cloud resources and configuration. We have VPC, subnet, route tables, internet gateways, NAT gateways, network ACLs, security groups, virtual private networks, which is VPN. So many security related options are there. So network ACL is one of our concern topic. So there we have default network access control list. So from there also we can define rules to allow or deny. So this is subnet related, and the security groups are instance related. And also we can have NAT gateways. So we can create a NAT gateway and attach to one of our subnets, so where we have private subnets, and we can attach internet gateway for public subnets. Let's switch to CloudTrail service, which is the accounting service in AWS, which keeps tracks in every action and event triggered by a particular user in AWS resources, where we can have a log of activities we can monitor or we can audit, as well as we can pass those logs into CloudWatch as well. So this is CloudTrail, and CloudWatch is our AWS monitoring service. Let's check on that as well. This is the overview of CloudWatch, where we can have logs and events and alarms triggered for our specific service alerts. So we can get some insights of the containerized applications and synthetic monitorings. In the logs, we can have CloudTrail logs, specific service related logs. Even we can get VPC flow logs, which is nothing but each and every transaction going here and there in between EC2 resources. So let's check on web application firewall service in AWS, where we can attach that firewall for application load balancers, API gateways, and CloudFront. So there we have different set of roles and groups, IP sets. We can define our own roles, or else we can use AWS predefined roles to safeguard our internet facing endpoints. Let's switch into inspector service, which is a security scanner for our EC2 instances. So that service is not supported in this Singapore region. So let's check on that in North Virginia region. So we can have these services if it is supported in particular region only. So we can install and run and analyze those security compliances and take a report to determine whether we have patch updates available or not. Then attend to those if necessary. Check on guard duty service, which is nothing but intelligent threat detection and protection service in AWS, where we can identify abnormal behaviors, any attacks, any threats. There's another service called Trusted Advisor. We can enable Trusted Advisor features as well to get advice for specific resources as cost optimization, performance, security, fault tolerance, and service limits. So once it triggers or once it executes these options by AWS Trusted Advisor service itself, and we can have a list of recommendations, so we can attend to them accordingly. So basically those are the points that I wanted to show you guys. As a security concerns, it's best to have an idea of these things that we can use wherever we want, or the necessary applications in order to security best practices in AWS environment. So that is end of my discussion as well as the demo. So if you have any doubts or any clarifications, so go through those references as well as AWS documentations for further clarification. So thanks for watching.